Ladies and gents, PepperBelly back again, and welcome to the Division Beta. Now, this is one that people have been looking forward to for a very long time, myself included, and I finally got access to the beta on pretty much the last day, which was unfortunate. I was really hoping for an invite because I signed up over a year prior for this beta, and unfortunately I was only invited on the last day, but thankfully they extended it another 24 hours, giving me enough time to get to experiment and play a lot of what the beta had to offer, which was incredibly limited in scope, but especially what's going to be considered the entire game. It was incredibly limited. You didn't have a lot of things you can do, and even then, I still managed to find myself having a tremendous amount of fun, and now I'm actually looking forward to the final product. I never thought I would say that. I mean, I was looking forward to the idea of this game for a long time, but now after playing the beta, I can honestly firmly say I may end up purchasing this game because I thoroughly enjoyed what I experienced here. Now, first things first, if you guys aren't familiar with what The Division is supposed to be, it's a third-person shooter, but it's an RPG at heart, meaning that every enemy you go up against is going to be incredibly bullet spongy unless you are super high level, you get like an orange weapon for your level, and you go and fight lower level enemies. Only then will you kill them in like 2-3 shots, which I have done numerous times because, hey, it's fun. But at the same time, it's a very bullet spongy type of game. And I knew this going in. And even though they slapped Tom Clancy's name on it, which I think was kind of a little bit of a marketing ploy because it's not really their... It seems like they're trying to utilize that name as a selling point. You know, Tom Clancy's The Division. It sounds good, but at the same time, when I picture Tom Clancy games, when I hear the words, the name Tom Clancy, not just the words, but the name Tom Clancy, I envision reality. You know, I picture very authentic, realistic gameplay. And when I'm playing a game like this where it takes, like, 3 trillion shots to the head to kill somebody, you know, it kind of throws that whole realism thing out the window. Not that it's a problem, you know. I actually really enjoy games like this. I like bullet spongy RPG, third-person, cover-based shooters. And although a lot of people would compare this game to games like Borderlands or even Destiny on the console, I personally feel like it feels more closer to that of Mass Effect. It feels like I'm playing Mass Effect 1/3, and by 3 I mean because of the abilities in the multiplayer component, and by 1 I mean the way the actual movement and shooting feels. It feels a lot more tactical than it did in the later iterations of Mass Effect, which felt more action cover oriented, which to some extent I kind of wish this game didn't have a cover system, and the reason why is because I feel that if you just replaced it with a crouch and maybe even a prone, players would have a little bit more of a tactile, direct control and influence over their character versus locking into cover and then kind of being restricted to that cover unless you move either away from it or you tap the cover button again. Now, this is not problematic, right? The cover system is very, very fluid and very solid. And the only problem I probably have is the whole vaulting system being independent of the actual cover system. Instead of just holding the cover system and you automatically vault, it's a completely different key. It's actually control in this case, where you're sprinting, which is a toggle option, or you can go into the control options and change it to hold, which makes it feel a little bit better, makes your character input a lot more solidified and intentional. But at the same time, it makes it difficult to vault because you have to press control and hold it to be able to vault over things. Which, holding shift and then having to press control, as you can imagine, is obviously a very challenging task. So in the end, obviously you can change some things around. Like, you can go into the control options and you can actually go to an option called parkour mode. You turn parkour mode on, and it essentially allows you to free run by holding shift. So if you're sprinting, whatever obstacle is in your way, you will automatically vault unless you hit the cover button. Now, this is good in theory. You know, you're thinking that when you're playing around with it and you're moving around, all you're doing is holding shift to sprint and you're vaulting over cover and everything. It feels awesome. It's a lot easier on the fingers, and it's just like, it's a way better experience for the most part. And like I said, it sounds better in theory because eventually it gets to the point where it doesn't exactly do that. What I mean is that if you run by a bus stop or you run through a gate that has a door in it, you won't sprint through the gate, through the opening door in the gate, or you won't sprint under the bus stop. You will just automatically clamber and vault over it, which is a problem because, as you can imagine, that's not what you're intending to do. But since parkour mode is on and it's automatically, instinctively wanting to vault and climb over obstacles in your path, even if the obstacle is not even really an obstacle, like a gate. You know, you think a gate with a door in it, you want to sprint through that opening, the actual door itself, instead of climbing over top of the damn gate. But if you have parkour mode on and you're sprinting with shift, That's exactly what it does. It just makes you're like running through the opening, and all of a sudden your character just jumps up and grabs onto the top of the gate and then climbs over it. Now, if you're being chased down by another player, say you're going rogue in the DZ, which is the dark zone, then you're probably going to get screwed over. You're going to get killed because those things will completely stall your player, lock you in an animation that you cannot get out of, and then the players will just sit there and unload on you and take your life. It sucks. And so for that very reason, I just ended up leaving the controls as default because the way they have them set up by default are actually fine enough as it is. It's just I wish they could be better. You know, I wish I can actually customize them to my liking while not having any little discrepancies along the way, which is unfortunately what happens when you try to do so because of those little minor annoyances or those minor issues. But anyway, let's actually discuss the game itself now, because obviously I said that the beta was very limited. There's not a whole lot you can do in it currently. The areas you're in are very small. There's actually boundary markers. If you go outside those boundaries, then it'll teleport you back into the city. And if you're actually in the dark zone in the DZ and you happen to go outside the boundaries, which is exploitable currently, it was exploitable by people that would go rogue, it just teleports you to the safe house, which obviously you can imagine being very, very annoying. You think that by traditional standard, you run outside and you'll die, but that's not what happens. It just teleports you back into a safe house. So if you go rogue by killing a bunch of players and if they're chasing after you and you gotta run away, just run out of bounds and then it'll just teleport you back into the city. It's a very cheap, exploitable tactic, but it will not be a problem in the actual game because in the full game, there won't be any boundaries, right? You're familiar with the scope of the map. It's going to be quite massive, and obviously different areas of the maps have different levels, so players that are running away, if they want to run into the boundary marked areas, they're essentially running into higher level areas where they will probably get killed by either other higher level characters or players or NPCs. So that alone won't be an issue. But there are many other problems. I wouldn't say many, but there's some other little annoying issues that need to be remedied in the game mechanics to alleviate some of the exploitable tactics that players that go rogue have a tendency to do. And it's been debated a ton, but I'll get to that in a second. First, we're going to talk about the PvE area, the player versus environment. And what this area is where all the missions take place, for the most part. The PvP zone is strictly the dark zone, which has high-level mobs that you can get really good loot from. You can still get good loot in the PvE areas, but apparently Ubisoft has said that if you want to get the best gear, you have to go to the dark zone. So the game starts off with you flying in via helicopter, you land, and then you're immediately given missions and tasks to do. There's bulletin boards you can go and acquire more information and get more mission data and whatnot, and then you can go out into the world and complete those missions, which are done in a very cinematic kind of story cutscene way, which is actually good. I like that. It doesn't break gameplay, though. It doesn't happen in the middle of gameplay. There are no, like, you're shooting, you're engaged, all of a sudden there's a cutscene and you're stuck in the cutscene. That's not what happens. It's all, like, prior to the missions and after the missions, and they usually happen back at your base. So, I mean, it's interesting how they did that. That way it doesn't break the flow of gameplay. I like it. And the missions actually feel fun to do. You know, they're fun, enjoyable missions. You can queue up for multiplayer online, or you can do them solo. I'm pretty sure the PvE areas, there are no other players in the area because it's an own client-based personal instance that you're in, unless you actually invite other players online. Now, the problem here is that within the beta, there was not a whole lot going on. So the world felt incredibly empty until you actually did all those side quests. There's like side missions you can do, which are minor. So it's like they would have maybe a hostage rescue situation, or, you know, like little minor missions like that, little side quests that took place on the spot. You would just run to an encounter area and you would complete that encounter and that would be it. And you would get loot maybe at the end of that encounter, and that's how it ends. It's not a real mission. You don't traverse terrain or do anything specific, or you don't have any key objectives. It's just go there, kill a bunch of mobs, and then leave. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's pretty much all there is. It only happens once. I thought encounters were kind of dynamic, like happening all over the city, all at, you know, random intervals, but that's not what happens. In the beta, you can actually complete them all, and then once you do that, the entire PvE area has nothing to do. You actually completely exhaust all tasks in the PvE area that was available during the beta, which again isn't a problem because then it kind of forced you to go into the dark zone to experience what that had to offer, which is, I can say, where the game truly shines. A lot of people want to say that it's a lot like DayZ in that unforgiving kind of environment where you have to go and get loot. And that loot cannot just be extracted by running out the exit. You have to extract it via a helicopter by attaching it to a fixed line. This whole process makes it very, very tense. You know, you're constantly worrying about which players are going to stab you in the back by killing you and stealing all your shit. Now the thing here is that it doesn't just take all your gear. It only takes whatever is in the bag. So when you're in the DZ area and you collect loot, it'll go into a contaminated pouch that's on your back. It's in a yellow kind of bag that everybody can see with the biohazard symbol on it. It's very noticeable, as you can see right here. So if a player's running by and you see them have that, you know they have loot. Whether it's good or not, you have really no idea. You won't find out unless you kill them. Now, killing them makes you go rogue. If you go rogue, every other player in the area can see where you are because they can see your name tag appearing through the walls, and you're rogue for a certain allotted period of time based on how many kills you get and what level of rogue you are. Now, it's very easy to go rogue by accident because how it happens isn't by actually killing another player. You go rogue based on how much damage you actually deal to another player. So if you shoot someone 3 or 4 times dealing enough damage, it'll trigger you and make you go rogue. Now, as you can imagine, this is easily exploitable by players that want to grieve other players. Essentially, they just run in front of the line of fire of another player to hopefully absorb enough of their rounds to trigger them and make them go rogue, and then they'll turn around and kill you. And it makes defending yourself very difficult to do, because if another player starts lighting you up, shooting you, trying to provoke a response, more often than not, you will be the one who ends up going rogue when you're trying to fire back at them, because it's actually entirely possible for them to shoot you a couple of times, dealing substantial damage without actually being triggered to go rogue. And if you have a whole group of enemies that are actually like partied up together in a group, firing on you, trying to provoke you, chipping away at your health, it makes it a lot easier on them to finish you off when you do actually try to fire back and defend yourself. Because you don't really know whether or not they're actually going to go guns blazing or just try to make you go rogue. That's the problem. It's not so much that they're attacking you and you're not aware of what's happening. It's the fact that they're trying to provoke a response from you, which is understandable to do in a game like this, but when the mechanics kind of ruin it for you as a player, essentially by making it so that if they're shooting you, they're clearly the ones who are intending to go rogue, right? Because they're trying to fight you for your loot. But they don't want to go triggered, they don't want to get triggered actually being rogue, so they're not labeled as a rogue so other players come after them. They're trying to provoke you to make you make that decision to go rogue so that they can kill you and have zero consequence on their end. That's a problem, because clearly they're the ones who are being the aggressors. They're the ones who are essentially being the rogues by the way they're actually going about doing things, yet it doesn't actually trigger them being rogue as a result. So it's a very kind of obviously exploitable mechanic. Very easily exploitable, but in the end, it's not really a big deal because other players will still try to kill them anyway, right? If you're roaming around with a group of friends, which again, I strongly suggest you do, it's a lot easier to counter people who want to trigger you going rogue. Because then you just kill them. You just accept the fact that you're going to go rogue, you kill them, and you wait out a whole minute until your timer's up, and then you get a nice hefty amount of cash. You just go on the run for a while, and you try to stay alive as long as you can. And hopefully you don't lose your loot. So, that's pretty much how that works. It's fun, it's tense, but at the same time, there's little mechanics that can be exploited, as I just said, that is just, it can kind of ruin the experience for a lot of people, and one of them that really bugs me a lot is the fact that all the extraction points, which I imagine in the full game won't be as bad because there won't be just 3, but all the extraction points that are available, people tend to camp around the areas, obviously waiting to kill those who want to extract their loot, which is understandable. You're baiting and ambushing, that's all part of the game. I completely agree with that, I think it's fine. What I don't necessarily think is a good idea is locking a player in an animation that prevents them from being able to defend themselves. And what I mean is that when you're actually trying to attach your container to the line for extraction, you have to hold the key down for a certain amount of seconds before he actually finishes the animation. And the problem with this is that a lot of players will wait until you're halfway through the animations before they light you up. And as you can imagine, it's incredibly annoying because there's nothing you can do to defend yourself. There'll be people all around you, they're all acting friendly to you, they're essentially helping you secure the area, and then when it's time to extract, you go up to the line, you look around to make sure they're not going to stab you in the back, and then you start to put it on the line, and the second you put it on the line, it seems like everything's going to be all fine and dandy. You're halfway there, it's almost full, you're happy, and then suddenly everyone turns on you and shoots at you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because the animation actually stalls. When you're taking damage, you'll actually see the bar that's filling up will be retracted back to a previous point over and over and over again every single time you take a hit. And this pretty much locks you in an animation that you cannot get out of. And on top of that, everything happens in a fraction of a second. You know, it takes like no time at all for someone to turn on you and just empty a bunch of rounds in your head, getting critical headshot damage, and putting you down really, really fast. Now, naturally, a lot of people would come out and say that, well, this is your own fault because you're playing solo and you can't trust anybody, and I understand that, and I agree. But making it so that you are literally locked in an animation whereas you cannot fight back and defend yourself no matter what. I mean, if that was going to happen in real life, if I was looking at someone in front of me as I was mounting a bag and he was going to, I saw him raise the weapon, my instinctual reaction would be to drop what I'm doing, pick up my weapon and start shooting back as well. And given this is an RPG, there are damage modifiers. You know, everyone's a bullet sponge. So in that scenario, you actually have the ability to fight back. If you can get yourself in a better position, get better crit damage, heal yourself, do whatever you need to do, by strategizing and playing better, you can technically survive that encounter, given it's an RPG. But since you're locked in an animation, you're basically putting it up on the line and you're taking damage, and then your character's just stuttering, stammering on the spot, unable to do anything at all. Which, as you can probably guess, frustrates the player knowing that they cannot have control of their character in that instance to defend themselves. It's the same idea of when you're playing a game and your character automatically starts vaulting an object or an obstacle and you didn't intend for it to happen, and as it's happening you're locked in an animation that you cannot get out of, you cannot control, and you're taking a shitload of damage in the process, and then you end up dying as a result. Pretty sure many of you guys who've played games have experienced it, and it's frustrating. Nobody likes that stuff. Nobody likes losing control of their character at any point during gameplay. So my proposition would basically just be this. Replace the timed animation with just a simple animation that plays really quickly. You don't have to hold down F, you just press F and he mounts it right away. Because this will actually inspire players. Not only, some of you guys are going to be kind of annoyed. I know some people would be like making the arguments that, well, you know, I want to be able to ambush someone while they're, you know, defenseless. And it's like, I get that. I understand what you're saying. But from a gameplay standpoint, it detracts the whole experience for those players. You should technically be planning an ambush before the player is completely defenseless in a gameplay standpoint, right? This is not, it's an unforgiving game. I understand that. The whole point is about, you know, backstabbing. You don't know who to trust, that kind of thing. But at the same time, put yourself in those shoes, you know, where you're the player who's, everyone's being all fine and dandy, they seem like you're your friend, and then when you're putting it on the line when you can't defend yourself. It's the moment you cannot defend yourself. You are completely immobilized. Then they take advantage of it. And it's a dick move, you know, it's like, that's what you picture douchebags doing, you know, like, it just makes you want to find the person in real life and strangle them to death, right? Like, it's really frustrating, nobody likes that shit. In my mind, if you're going to be intentionally trying to kill someone who's trying to extract, you should be preparing an ambush prior and fighting that person instead of taking them out when they are completely immobilized due to a game feature and mechanic. If it was possible to cancel that animation, if it canceled the animation upon taking damage, like say you're going to place it on the line and halfway through the animation you get shot and it stops immediately and lets you pull out your weapon, okay, well then there you go. That's a great alternative. But unless you give players the control they want over their characters so they can at all times be cautious and aware and ready to defend themselves, it's going to ruin the experience for a lot of players. And I think it's absolutely critical that you allow for players to be able to fight back in that situation. They're not going to win. Alright, let's be honest here. 90% of the time you won't win, but at least you died trying to fight off versus being completely helpless. And I think most people prefer that. And in some situations you can win. And to me that's kind of important. But anyway, that pretty much wraps up what I think of some of the mechanics that can be exploited. But for the most part, the game is excellent, guys. I was pleasantly surprised with the beta. I had a tremendous amount of fun, as I said earlier in this video. I would recommend it. If you have played the beta or you haven't played the beta, I would say that this is something that you should definitely look into, because I thoroughly enjoy what I played here. As I said, it feels a lot like Mass Effect. I can actually even say it feels a lot like Spec Ops: The Line in terms of its, you know, third-person cover mechanics, you know, being a third-person shooter. But the RPG elements feel a lot more like Mass Effect than most other games. They don't have ridiculous abilities that are way out there. They're kind of realistic, somewhat feasible, like, abilities and skills that you can use that fit within the context of the world. So it's not like super sci-fi or super out there, right? They're realistic depictions. You know, you get like a ballistic shield, or you can heal yourself. Like, you know, little things like that that aren't too far out there. You're not gonna be like summoning demons from the underground, you know, like the underworld or whatever. So I mean, it retains that realistic, authentic appeal that I guess is why they slapped on Tom Clancy's name. But even then, I don't fully agree with that. I think they should probably, well, whatever, it's too late now. I'm not going to be like, they're not going to remove the Tom Clancy from the title because I say so, right? They are putting it there as a selling point. It's like Tom Clancy's The Division. It's an authentic portrayal game, but it's an RPG, and because it's an RPG, there's a lot of these different mechanics that are obviously not realistic in the slightest, but make for an excellent gaming experience, which I think is what you're going to get here with this game. But make sure you have friends, or make some friends. That's all I'm going to say, because roaming alone, I like to roam alone. I'm a lone wolf kind of guy, but I like to have friends who got my back as well. And trust me, in this game, having friends goes a long way. There will be a lot of times where you'll run into other players who will be friendly to you in the moment, given the context of what's happening. It happens a lot, you know, like a rogue will start shooting someone, everyone comes to your aid, you know, and they'll revive you and they'll help you kill that rogue, which is great. That happens a lot more often than not. You'd be surprised. You know, you think people will be killing on sight a lot more often, like they would in DayZ. You think there'd be a lot of scumbags, but in reality, in this game, there's actually a lot of smart decisions being made by players. You know, they're sitting there and they're tactically thinking about what they can do to get the upper hand in any given situation, whether or not you can betray all the players around you, get their loot, and survive, or if it's more profitable to work with players around you. So there's a lot more strategies involved, which in my mind just makes the game an incredible experience, and I am looking forward to seeing how everything unfolds when it actually releases. Hopefully, the game feels a lot more fuller when it's actually finished. Like, I'm hoping the world, they've said that the game world is going to be a lot more lively, because right now it felt dead. Like, playing the beta, there was not a lot of stuff going on. There were no roaming gangs, there were no roaming enemies, there were no nothing. It was like just empty streets and the encounter areas, and the encounter areas were the only spots where there were enemies. And once you finished everything, once you completed all the areas in the game, in the beta, that was it. You would occasionally come across two guys who would be sitting on the street, you know, looting a corpse, and you would kill them in 2 seconds, and the encounter would be done in, like, exactly that, 2 seconds. It was very uneventful. There was no, like, significant environmental effects on gameplay, which I hope in the actual game will be different. I hope that when players are roaming through the dark zone or roaming through the PvE areas, they will see high-level mobs that will spawn in randomly, or they'll be like bosses or something, you know, something more interesting than just static, plain nothingness that makes the world feel empty and undesirable. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is performance, because performance in games like this are kind of important, and if you notice the frame rate counter, you'll see that I'm hovering around 40 FPS on average, which in this game isn't desirable. Obviously, 60 frames per second is what you want in a PC game, but it isn't terrible. It does play and feel relatively smooth considering it's 40 frames per second, and sometimes I'll get upwards of 50. It really depends. In order for me to actually get a solid 60 frames per second, I have to turn every single setting to the lowest. And this isn't about my PC not being up to snuff, alright? My PC isn't the latest, greatest hardware specs you can get, but it is far from being something that cannot run games. I mean, I can run almost every single game I have in 1080p maxed out, for the most part, with really good frame rates. Almost every game I play, except for the highly demanding ones like The Witcher 3 and Rise of the Tomb Raider and other games like that. The Division doesn't look impressive enough, doesn't seem like it should be impacting performance as much as it actually is, and on top of that, a lot of players across the board are actually complaining about performance. I mean, there are a lot of other people that have way better specs than I do who are still getting pretty similar performance to what I'm having, which is kind of like surprising considering their systems are far better than what I have. So Ubisoft has actually come out and said, which is the good news, is that Ubisoft has said that optimization hasn't really been done yet, and they're going to be polishing and optimizing the game as much as they can so that it'll run on a wide variety of PC configurations, which is what they want to drill into our heads. They want to tell us that this is actually not a PC port. This has been developed for PC. This is a fully functioning PC game, which is really important to them to try to get across to us. We will see. You know, it's Ubisoft we're talking about, and they've been notoriously bad with PC games in the past, and hopefully they can show us that with The Division, they can win the hearts and minds of the PC gaming community. So we'll see. My name has been PepperBelly. Thank you guys for joining me today on this video of The Division Beta, my thoughts and assessments and I'll see you guys on the next one.